I'm Dan Linna, the Director for Legal R&D, the Center for Legal Services Innovation at Michigan State University College of Law, also the Assistant Dean for Career Development, and really pleased to be able to introduce Nicole Abboud, who is here today speaking to our students. Nicole is an attorney in the Los Angeles area. She's a graduate of Southwestern Law School. We all had, we follow her on Twitter and have been watching some of her podcasts, and we all had the pleasure, I had the pleasure and some of our legal R&D students of meeting her at the legal hackathon that we attended in Los Angeles at UCLA Law School back in October. And it was great to find out that Nicole was actually going to be here in Michigan in December. And so we have some nice weather, and we're fortunate to have Nicole here to speak with us. She's going to talk about Gen Y lawyers as leaders and also building your personal brand as a lawyer. And so again, we're thrilled to have you here, Nicole. And if you have questions during the presentation, please just raise your hand, and we want this to be a little bit interactive. And we're also broadcasting this live over Google Hangouts on air, and we're excited that hopefully we'll have a good video that we can keep up there. And so the students who couldn't make it here during the middle of the study break for finals will be able to watch this video later on. So if we can give a warm welcome for Nicole.
All right, thank you. Let me put this up here. All right, thank you. And if you guys are wondering why I am in Michigan, my family actually lives here. They moved here 4 years ago, so I come here every Thanksgiving and Christmas. So let me just say thank you. Let me get this out of the way. Thank you so much for coming and listening to me talk to you guys. Thanks for Dan. I'm so glad we did meet at UCLA because that led to me being here. And of course, thanks to MSU and Legal R&D. And I'm not very good at PowerPoint, so hopefully this matches up what I'm saying. But I was born in 1986, and I grew up in the 90s during a time of technological advancements and economic disruption and just globalization. And life was fun and safe and loud and just happy. And I thought being a lawyer was kind of like Ally McBeal, right? That was who I turned to. And then when I was 15, I actually lived in Ohio, a little place called Dayton, just for 3 years. And I saw something that I hope I never see during my lifetime, and hopefully you guys never see that as well. But the year was 2001, it was 9/11, and I actually saw the second plane crash into the second building because I happened to be working at an office and not in class at the time. When I was 22, I started law school. I was blissfully ignorant as to what was happening in the world because it was actually 2008. And if you guys remember 2008, that was smack dab in the middle of the Great Recession. But I was in law school, I was happy, and I was having a grand old time. And I didn't realize all this evil stuff was brewing in the economy outside. And 3 years later, I graduated, 2011. And for those who don't know, 2011 is that little dot right there where it was the worst for law graduates. There were no jobs. Lawyers were being laid off left and right. Salaries were really, really low for those who did have jobs. And I know classmates who found jobs and they were getting paid $30,000 a year as lawyers. So why am I reciting all these big historical occurrences, this timeline? Why does it even matter? If you guys were born in the 80s, maybe early 90s, like I was born in the 80s and grew up in that time period, then we all belong to a great big generation called Gen Y. Generation Y, we're also called millennials. And the reason why I mention these timelines is because I truly believe that we as a generation are shaped by these historical occurrences in which we grew up in which we grew up during, right? So all these unique things like 9/11, like the Great Recession, just this bad economy that we're all experiencing. All these shape who we are and shape our traits and our characteristics as we move forward in life. So even with all this negative stuff, I really think that as a generation, we have a lot of great traits, a lot of great characteristics and experiences that lend themselves to us being amazing leaders. They really set us up to be the leaders of tomorrow, of today and tomorrow, really. And I kind of narrowed it down to 3 top assets that we all possess that make us ready for leadership. And they are that we are purpose-driven, that we are change agents, and that we're community-oriented. And when I'm done with this section, of course, we're going to talk about personal branding, but I'll stop and take some questions if you guys have any. And if you have any throughout, just throw your hands up there. I'd love to answer them. So our first greatest asset is the fact that we are purpose-driven. As I mentioned, the legal industry is not what it used to be. We are no longer insured jobs. We don't have job security if we do have a job. We're not getting paid as much as we used to as lawyers, right? So there have been seismic changes in the profession. So why are we even still here? Why are we going through finals? Why are we in law school? Why are we putting ourselves through all this and accumulating all this debt? Well, there must be a purpose, right? We must be driven by some higher purpose. And so what does this purpose look like? I'm sure we've all heard, oh, follow your passions, have a purpose, but what does it really look like? For a lot of us, make sure I'm moving forward. For a lot of us, we came to law school for the common yet very important, we want to fight for justice, right? We hear that pretty often. I'm sure most of us put that in our personal statements. For others, we want to be thought leaders, we want to be activists, maybe we want to teach, we want to open businesses. And for some of you, maybe you're just not sure what you want to do, and a JD seemed like a good idea and a secure future, right? The beauty, I guess, is regardless of what you end up doing, whether you practice law, whether you do something else, whether you practice for a year, 10 years, or for the rest of your life, if you have a purpose and if you are clear on what that purpose is and why you're here and what you want to do with your JD, that will guide you for the rest of your life. And I highly urge you to write your purpose down on a piece of paper and stare at it every single morning. Because being a lawyer is not a walk in the park. It's tough. There's a lot of negativity. It will break your spirit every single day. Of course, there's a lot of great stuff about it. But if you're clear on why it is you even went to law school in the first place and why you want to be a lawyer and an advocate, that will kind of guide you. So how many of you guys know what you want to do with your JD exactly? Like, you have a plan, you know it, you're set. Anyone? Okay, yeah, no, this is a good thing. Don't be afraid. All right, cool. I'm not going to ask you what it is. I'm sure. Okay, good. Well, what do you want to do? I'll ask you. Fashion law, there you go. That's why you looked up my website. All right, cool. Well, that's great. Well, like I said, I want you to write it down, and I want you guys to keep these 3 questions in mind when you're searching for what it is that you want to do in your lives, with your lives, and what meaning this JD is going to hold for you. And it's the following 3 questions. If you guys have pen and paper, write it down. But what is your vision for your life? And really think about these things when you're done with finals. How are you going to put this JD to good use? And what will give your life meaning? Because I know, as I mentioned, we hear follow your passions and do what you love. And to me, that is something that I kind of gave into and bought into in the beginning, and something I share with students all the time. But the more I think about it, the more I'm just like, you know what, maybe it's not always realistic to just follow our passions, because maybe our passions don't make us any money. And we have to make money to survive. So at least try to find meaning in what it is that you're doing, whether you're a lawyer or you're not. And I think the best part about finding your purpose is you will actually start to attract a lot of like-minded people who buy into what it is, who buy into your vision and want to come along for the ride with you and who will support you. And that is actually the sign of a great leader, right? Someone who can actually find like-minded individuals and then come together with them towards a common goal. So our second great asset is the fact that we, let me make sure, are change agents. Change is normal for us as Gen Yers, as Gen Y, Generation Y, just individuals and lawyers. We've been handed, we're kind of entering the profession in a tough time, but we get very creative with what we're given. So we're handed lemons, we make lemonade, and a lot of us sell that lemonade to make money. So while many lawyers and generations prior to us kind of entered the profession at a good time, they found jobs, they found cushy positions and made a lot of money. It's not necessarily like that for us, but that's okay because we are okay with change. We embrace it, we feel comfortable with it, and we actually welcome it. And one of the biggest reasons why we're okay with change is because we embrace technology. Very weird guy. So as Gen Y leaders, as I mentioned, we embrace change, and we see technology as an untapped resource, basically, right? A lot of older attorneys are very hesitant to incorporate even the simplest technology into their practice. And they think it's big, bad, and scary, and they don't understand it, and it's going to replace all the lawyers in the world. And as Gen Y lawyers, we know better. We know that instead of seeing technology as a bad thing, something that's going to replace us, we actually accept it, embrace it, and know that this is going to make us more efficient and more effective lawyers instead of fearing that it's going to take our positions. Because at the end of the day, people still need human beings to represent them. At least in the distant future, I think. I don't know if you guys have an insight. I mean, you guys are leading the pack in terms of merging technology and the law. So I know I'm preaching to the choir in this area. Another way that we are change agents is the fact that we see this JD, this license that we're earning, this degree, as we see that it has many uses. So even if we don't end up practicing law, we know that we can do anything with the knowledge and the skills and techniques that we're learning here in law school. And in the past, lawyers in generations past, they used to either suffer silently, they hated being lawyers and they just kind of sucked it up and did it anyways, or they quit altogether. And I feel like we're somewhere in the middle. A lot of us maybe are unhappy, but we know that there's more that we can do with our JD. For a lot of us, and if you guys listen to my podcast, I interview a lot of young lawyers who are kind of doing cool things with their degree, and maybe a lot of them are practicing, but they're kind of doing it in a different way. So either online or with a certain niche, or many of them kind of left the practice altogether because they decided to find their purpose. And now they are designing lingerie. They're fashion bloggers, they're authors and coders and web developers and all that good stuff. And they all started off as lawyers. So that, I think, is what makes us great leaders. The fact that we see different uses for our degree as well, not just as lawyers, if that's not something we want to pursue. All right, our third greatest asset is the fact that we are community oriented. And this is my favorite one. This is something I'm always preaching. So as I mentioned, millennials came of age during a time of globalization, technological disruption, economic disruption, and that kind of gave us a different set of behaviors and experiences. So growing up, well, now actually, we want access to things, but not necessarily ownership. And here's what I mean by that. We are kind of reluctant to buy cars and music and luxury goods because we are turning to services like Uber and Airbnb to give us access to these services without us owning it. And it kind of got me thinking, how can we apply that to the legal profession? And based on my experience with the guests that I've spoken to, a lot of them tell me that they're not so much interested in the fancy office or the expensive letterhead, but instead, they are turning to virtual offices, shared spaces even. They are going paperless and green, and they're willing to offer bundled services as opposed to one-on-one. So it's changing. The way we're offering our services as lawyers is changing. And it's all community oriented, because to have the sharing economy work, that's what this is referred to as the sharing economy, we really have to have trust. And you have to build trust in your community for all this stuff to work anyways. And I don't know if this is true, but in my opinion, I think we're becoming a little bit less competitive and a little bit more collaborative. I know obviously as a litigator, you still have to be very, very competitive. That's just the nature of the game. But I see us more as working together to move towards a common goal of solving these issues that our clients come to us with. And it's not so much going for the throat all the time, but it's more like, let's get together, put our minds together, and really think of the client first. And what's best is that we all actually work together and not just milk each other dry. The second second way that we're community oriented is that we are very social. I mean, it's no secret that we love social media. We're on the different platforms, we use them. And it's not because we love taking selfies, which we do, but we actually see social media and the platforms as a way to connect with our community. We know that clients are out there, they're searching us as soon as if they're looking to hire us, or even employers, if they're looking to retain us, to hire us as well, they are looking to social media to see what we're doing and what we think about and how we operate basically. So we really see it as we see social media as a way to connect with influencers in the community, to reach out to attorneys that you never thought you'd be able to reach and talk to. And also, as I mentioned, clients are looking us up, so we're turning to things like Yelp and Avo. Yelp is a pretty interesting phenomenon, the fact that lawyers are actually they're asking their clients for reviews on Yelp. And I never thought of looking for a lawyer on Yelp, but more and more firms are showing up. But that's showing that the community and how we interact with our clients and the service that we provide, it's not hush-hush anymore. Now people will go and leave you a review if you're not a good attorney. So building your community becomes much more important. And third reason the third way we're community oriented is that we are not only part of the sharing economy and not only social, but we're also looking for but we're also very socially good, if that makes sense. So we want to solve big problems in society, and we truly believe that we can actually amplify issues from the ground up. And if millennial shoppers show us anything, it's the fact that they actually turn to brands and companies that have a social message. So that's why we buy Tom's shoes and we buy Warby Parker glasses. It's because, you know, they have a social entrepreneurial segment of their company, and millennials like that. They trust the companies more. So let's think about how we can apply that to lawyers. How can lawyers become more trustworthy? Because we already have a bad rap. People think we're scums of the earth. It's really awful. They think we're liars. They don't trust us. But if we approach this as building a connection with our clients and bringing them into our community, you can really begin to build that trust and kind of get rid of some of these negative stereotypes as well, and be seen as a confidant and an advisor. And in turn, your clients will want to continue coming to you. They will actually pay your bills, because when you guys start practicing, you'll see that this is a big issue. You can work many, many hours on a case and not get paid for it because the client just decides not to do it. And of course, you have to chase them down for it. But the point is, if you're actually building a human connection with your clients and see them more than just a billable hour, they will more likely want to pay you. And also to this social good matter, I see a lot of attorneys now turning to things like low bono and pro bono services. They're offering a percentage of their income each month to charities, and I see it right there on their website. So these tend to be younger attorneys, maybe solo practitioners, where they have the flexibility to do that kind of thing, to adopt that kind of model. But we see that these are things that we're doing. These are ways that we're giving back to our communities more than just with our practice. I'm not sure what's next. And I think the most important thing is that we realize that rarely does anything good happen alone. And we really do have to come together, work with other people so we can move forward and we can accomplish all these huge things that we have in store, all these huge things that we have planned for us. So I wanted to move on to personal branding, but I do want to give you guys an opportunity to ask any questions about leadership and lawyers. But basically the three assets that I think that are working to our advantage, and based on just the shared experiences that we grew up with, is that we are purpose-driven, we are change agents, and we're community-oriented. So I don't know if you guys have any questions. I'd love to take them while I drink some water. Yeah.
I don't know if you've been, if you have experience with telling an older attorney how to kind of change their ways.
Yes.
Without telling them to change their ways.
Right. That's a good question, because a lot of young lawyers are, they start working and they find that they're running into a lot of resistance by their employers, because a lot of the young lawyers have ideas of how they can improve things, and the employers are dismissing them because either they're like, oh, you know, what do you know? You just started practicing, or they just don't want to change. Personally, I do have a little bit of experience. When I graduated and I started practicing, I was working for a family law attorney, and it was just me and him. So I thought, you know what, this is great. Like, I can have a say. I'm sure he'll listen to me. And I started to notice a lot of things that he did that I didn't like at all, in terms of just billing practices and the website and just the way he interacted with clients. And it wasn't what I wanted to do if I had the chance to actually do that kind of stuff. And I did actually suggest it to him. And I think it depends on how you approach it, but I suggested it to him, and he was open to them, but he actually ended up retiring a few months later, so he never implemented them. But no, I think you should definitely not be afraid to approach your employer with that kind of, if you're afraid to talk to your employer, then I'm not sure that's the best place to work, because you do want to have that kind of good, open relationship with your employer. With that said, I know that a lot of older attorneys are a little bit hesitant to change. They think that's been working so far, so what's the problem? But I think if you have a good idea, and you think it's going to add value to your firm or wherever you end up working, definitely approach them, and hopefully they're open to it. Hopefully it's not a totally crazy idea that they're just going to shut it down altogether. So, yeah.
Can you repeat the question when I asked them?
Oh, no, that's right.
That one's fine. That's good.
Okay.
You know, so I talk to a lot of students who it's clear they have a passion or they have a vision, but there's such a strong pull to kind of do the things that they think they're supposed to do. And I mean, how can you kind of address that how things kind of play out in the long run and why maybe they should really pay more attention to thinking about what their passion really is.
Okay, so the question was just how do you reconcile your passion with what you're told, basically, what you're taught in school to do, right?
What do you think you should do?
Oh.
Or like, yes, what you're told to do.
Yeah. So I hope I can answer this question because I don't know, because I'm still on that journey as well. So obviously when I was in law school, I followed the rules, I networked, I did what I was told, I joined bar associations, I did everything that they tell us to do as law students. So I'm not sure I followed my passions completely. So I hope I don't sound hypocritical, but it really took a few years for me after graduating when I was out in the world and saw how everyone else did things, to realize that there's so much conformity and convention in this profession, right? We're all taught the same thing. And if you really want to stand out, you honestly, and we'll talk about personal branding, and that's how you're going to stand out, but you really have to just be clear on your vision, be true to who you are, and don't be afraid to pursue it. We all have this legal knowledge, you know what I mean? Like, we're all in the same boat as soon as we start. So if you want to set yourself apart, don't be afraid to use what you know, and then add in a little bit of your personality, and add in a little bit of your other marketable skills that you might have outside of law school, and try to find people who will support you as well. So like I said, that's not something I was able to do in law school because I think my mind was just focused on being in school and graduating and passing the bar. But when I started practicing, and I would go to networking events all the time and notice that everyone was kind of saying the same thing, right? Everyone was talking about themselves, what they do, and they were trying to figure out, they were just passing out business cards, like they were just making it rain with their business cards, right? They were not even listening. It was basically, that's what it is. I'm sure you guys have all experienced that. But they weren't really listening to connect, and they weren't listening to find other individuals who can kind of walk on this path with them. So for me, I knew right away that I wanted to be different. That's part of the reason why I started practicing fashion law, because that was different. That was a little bit different at the time. Now it's kind of gained more traction. But I knew that that's something that I was very passionate about. It wasn't very common. I knew some people would laugh at it. Older attorneys were like, fashion law, what's that? Like, that's not a thing. And now it's booming. It's a huge profession, a huge segment of the legal profession. So it's a long-winded answer, but I don't know. I know it's tough as a law student to be different. I know we all just want to finish and pass, but there's something unique about all of you. It's true. So it's hard. But I think if you can't act on it right now as a law student, at the very least, think about all this stuff. Think about what is it about you that's different than every other lawyer, because it is a sea of conformity out there. So start thinking about it. Yeah.
Are you willing to go as far as to say what seems like the safe path isn't so safe, and really maybe the safer path is to pursue your passion?
Okay, so is it safer to be different, basically? Is it not so safe anymore to be?
What's really going to fuel you?
Right. Well, then, yeah, of course. Yes, I would go so far as to say that, and I'm still learning what I need to know to back this claim up. But I do think that if this is something we're going to do for the rest of our lives, this is a marathon, you guys. Like, this is the rest of our lives. Think about that for a second. So if you're doing something that you don't enjoy at all, it's not going to last. And there's a reason why depression is so high in this profession, and suicide and alcohol abuse. And it's because people feel like this is what they have to do, so they stick to it. But instead, why not just do things on your own terms when you know that it's going to last, because it's what you care about, and go for it for the long run. So yeah, I think it's probably better to be different and quirky and play up those little things that make you different. So, all right, any other questions? Okay. Not a problem, I'll keep talking. All right, so we're gonna switch it up now. We're gonna talk about personal branding. And like I said, we talked about being purpose-driven, we talked about being change agents, and community-oriented. And all these kind of help us build up our leadership skills. But why do we even care? Why do we care to be leaders? Why not just kind of jump in the crowd, keep our head down, make money, and be okay? Well, according to the ABA, the American Bar Association, in 2015, there were 1.3 million lawyers, which is a lot. And I'm from California, and I don't know the exact numbers, but I know that we have a crap load of lawyers passing every single year. So there are a lot of lawyers out there. There's a lot of great lawyers out there. I know you guys are going to be great lawyers as well. So how are you going to stand out? Not just to employers who will want to hire you, but to clients if you're going to be a solo practitioner. Well, it's this little thing called personal branding, right? So this is what's going to help you stand out. That's what's going to help you take these leadership skills that you're developing and put them into play. So what is a personal brand? Personal brand is the sum total of all experiences people have when they engage with you. It's how you leave them feeling. It's what people say when you leave the room. And I know that's similar to a reputation, right? And we all know how small the legal profession is, and everyone tells you your reputation is everything. But I think that personal branding is just a little bit more. It's a little bit bigger than just your reputation, because while your reputation is something that sort of happens to you, I mean, people develop a reputation about you. A personal brand is something that you are going to make happen. So it's something that you strategically develop by putting out into the world exactly what you want people to know about you, and to think about you and to feel about you. And so if it's a formula, I put it into this little formula right here. It's your values plus your vision plus your value plus your voice, and that's your personal brand. So your values are really what you hold dear in life. So your family, your hobbies, your purpose, your goals. Your vision is also your overall vision for your life as well. And so the values are a little bit more of, it's one step down. Your value is your unique selling proposition. So it's what's going to set you apart. And I know that as a young lawyer, when you first start practicing, sometimes you feel like there's nothing you have to offer that's different, right? You're still new. You don't know the practice area. But I would argue that you came into law school with marketable skills, with some kind of talent or something that's going to set you apart. Even if it's not related to the law at all, try to tap into that and try to bring that to the forefront. And we'll talk about how you can actually do that later. And then your voice is just how you're going to spread that message and let people know about you and what you have to offer, who you can help, all that good stuff. So all that equals your personal brand. Okay, so when we're developing a personal brand, I want you guys to keep two things in mind. I've actually never seen this movie, but I don't know if you guys have seen this clip. Is it Glenn Ross?
Yeah.
Okay, I've never seen it, but I know this. I know it's kind of silly I'm using it, but this is referenced all the time, and I'm like, I'm going to use this. So the two things I want you to keep in mind are, one, ABC, and it's always be closing, but I'm changing it to always be contenting. And two, humans are your friends. You will realize that content is king when you're building a brand, when you're trying to establish your name as an attorney or establish establish your career. And by that, I mean, you're going to use what you know, whatever it is, whether it's about a practice area, about technology, about some kind of hobby, anything, to really start building yourself up as an authority figure and a thought leader. And yes, you can do that as a young lawyer. I started a blog about fashion law, and I started getting contacted by people who wanted me to talk about it. And and I didn't know much about it. I was doing research and writing a blog, and people thought I was an authority all of a sudden. So you can actually develop yourself in that way. So there are different platforms that you can use, and there's a lot more than this, but I just listed a few. So you're going to pick a platform that you enjoy and really start exploring it and really start showing the world what you have to offer, what you know, how you can help, who you want to help. And the best part is, not only will you attract attention, which is always good, but if you're trying to find a job, an employer might see all this stuff and see that you're not just a young lawyer who doesn't know anything. You have these business development aspects and potential because you have an interesting personality. You have something that you know. So there's blogging. I started a blog. Like I said, it's really simple. The entry barrier is really low. And all of a sudden I became an authority in fashion law when I wasn't. You can do vlogging. If you're more into videos, that's something you can explore. We all know I love podcasting. So I actually started tell you guys how it's changed my life. I mean, the fact that I'm even standing here is amazing, but I was someone who just didn't like the sound of my own voice. So the fact that I even started a podcast was weird for me. But I started connecting with lawyers that I thought were big shots and I never thought would ever talk to me. And now, I kid you not, they turn to me when they have some event that they want me to come to, or they want me to come on Blab or Periscope and talk. And I'm nobody. I was just someone who wanted to know more about our generation and what we're doing and how we're doing it differently and how we're creating lifestyles that we don't want to escape or careers that we don't want to escape. So that kind of became my platform, and it really did, as corny as it sounds, it really did give me a voice. So I love podcasting. There's Periscope. You can send newsletters. You can really do anything you want as a lawyer. there's so many platforms that you can really use. You can use social media as well. It can be as simple as sending a tweet, just sharing your thoughts on something and continuously doing it consistently. You'll actually begin to develop your personal brand. I keep hitting this mic. It's going to sound awful. I'm probably like breaking people's eardrums. So we'll move on from this, and then I can take some questions. Unless you have any and you want to throw them out there, don't be shy. Yes.
How did you get over the listening to your own voice? Because even sometimes reading the voice, I'm like, oh my God, is that what I sound like?
Yeah. So this is kind of, okay, so the question is, how do I stand my own voice? I think that basically, I know. No, that's actually a good question. And I think this is an issue that maybe women deal with a little bit more than men, because we are more critical of our voices, and what you hear on radio is mostly men. So we're not used to hearing this higher pitched voice as a woman. So that's something that it took a long time for me to get over. And I'm Middle Eastern. I was born here. English was my first language, but I learned Arabic when I was about a few years old. So sometimes I feel like I have an accent. No one hears it, I hear it. So I'm even more critical of my voice. But the first maybe 20 episodes when I would edit, that's when I would listen to it, and then I would never listen to it again. And I would just put it out in the world and not really listen to the final product because I just couldn't hear my voice. And I don't know what to say other than eventually you embrace it. Whatever quirks or qualms you have about it, you not only get over it, but you kind of realize that at least you're doing it and no one else is, right? Not too many other people are doing it. And more than likely, you're the only one criticizing your voice. No one else is if people are bothered by it, they're not gonna listen. But if they're listening, they're okay with it. So yeah, it's something that you kind of get over with time and just with experience, but it's hard. Like I still cringe a little bit, but I try to focus on the message as opposed to how I sound. I know that people want to hear what I'm saying, so I'm like, I'll get over it. So, but very good question. Okay, the second part was that humans are your friends. I know we're all told as law students we need to network like crazy because that's how we're going to find jobs and all that good stuff, find clients. And it's true, but there's something about the word networking that just kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies. I still feel very weird. I know I just said heebie-jeebies. I still feel very weird. I'm not sure I'm a millennial, actually. I still feel very weird going to networking events. And even though I'm an extrovert, I still get very awkward because it's just a weird dance that we do with other people when we go to networking events, right? Like we're trying to impress and we're trying to meet people, and maybe we're trying to find a job, and we want a job, you know what I mean? Like sometimes we're a little bit desperate for it, and I get that. So I kind of I'm trying to change the way I look at it as, instead of networking, I see it as community building. And I go to events with the intention of, well, like I say, strategically network. I try to go to, in the beginning, I went to all the networking events because I needed to be everywhere. But then I started to notice that a lot of them, at the end of the event, I would go home and I'd feel empty on the inside. And I didn't meet anyone I really wanted to meet. So I started picking and choosing which events to go to. Ones that I was either interested in the subject, or I knew there was a speaker. If it was a CLE event, I knew there was a speaker I wanted to meet. Or I went to ones that I really cared about. And I really went there with the intention of meeting people who kind of agreed with my vision of things or my idea of things, because then I can begin building my community of like-minded individuals. And I'm not saying everyone needs to agree with everything you believe in, but having that support system is amazing. And of course, build your board of mentors. Think of it that way. I know we're all told get mentors, but think of it as a board of mentors. So you want a different mentor for different reasons. You don't want just one, because maybe they're not always knowledgeable about what you're trying to do, so they might lead you astray. But these mentors are going to be, they're so crucial. So when I went solo about a year and a half ago, had I not had a strong system of mentors, I don't know if I would have made it, because I had no templates. I had a lot of questions I didn't have the answers to, and I couldn't just Google. So I had to turn to these mentors, and because I had built up a relationship with them, they were willing to help me. And they gave me templates, and they gave me guidance, and they checked my work. So, and then of course, volunteer when you can. In the beginning, especially if you have some time, volunteer so you can get that hands-on practical experience, and just to meet people and get your name out there. Another way to build your personal brand. You always want to be thinking, how can I get my name out there, but in a good way, not in a narcissistic way. It's more of how can I let people know how I can help them. And then always offer value. So if you decide to create content, whichever platform you choose, always offer value. So always give, and then ask. I don't know if you guys are familiar with an author named, he's an author and speaker. His name is Gary Vaynerchuk. Have you guys heard? You have? Okay. So he's pretty popular. He wrote a book called Jab, 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 Right Hook. And that's kind of what he talks about. The fact that you, have you guys talked about it? Okay. So he kind of talks about the fact that a lot of people do things the wrong way. A lot of lawyers, well, he doesn't talk about this, so I'm saying a lot of lawyers do this the wrong way. Like I said, they go to networking events and they just want to see how they can get business, like what's in it for them. And those are the ones who will turn people off. They're the ones who might get one referral, but that's it. But the lawyers who go to meetings or go to events or just have as their guiding light this idea of giving first, trust me, they will get so much more in return. Like this podcast takes me a lot of time it takes a lot of my time during the week, but I do it. It's free. I do it because I know I'm offering something of value. And like I said, it's leading me to so many other things, so many opportunities, and I've gotten business from it as well. So always give first and don't think about what's in it for you. Think of how you can help others first. And as lawyers, it's kind of on us to do that, I think. But I think that's a whole different discussion of pro bono, because I know a lot of business. I heard this interesting discussion the other day of this lawyer who was saying, why do lawyers have to do so many pro bono hours? You don't go to a business owner and say, hey, give me your stuff for free. So why do people go to lawyers and say, do this for free? So I don't know what you guys think about that, but I think as lawyers, we're just so blessed and privileged to have this knowledge and be in this position. So if you can give, always give. But of course, also make sure that you're asking every once in a while, so you're not just always giving. And of course, if you're always giving, people will want to serve you as well when you do finally do the ask. So just a quick quote, I guess, by Jeff Bezos. He's the chairman of and CEO of Amazon. One of the huge mistakes people make is that they try to force an interest on themselves, but you don't choose your passions choose you. I just thought that was kind of cool. And it's something, discovering your passion is a lifelong thing. So if you don't know what it is now, that's okay. It's a journey. It will change. So just keep that in mind. And let me just kind of end with a few things, and then we can take questions. So being a lawyer nowadays is tough. I know, I hope I wasn't too negative, but it's tough. And there is a lot of competition and a lot of negativity. But I think there's also no denying that's a good time to be a lawyer as well, because we can really create the kind of lifestyles that we want, the kind of careers that we want, and we have so many resources to help us do that. And this license that you guys are, this degree and license that you guys are earning is really a license to effectuate change. You can really do anything with your lives, whether you practice or whether you don't. And I don't know how many other degrees can do that for you. But I want to wish you guys good luck. I know you guys are in the midst of finals. If you're not, thank you for coming in and listening to me, but good luck. And I know that I'm always here for you. Of course, you can always reach out to me, but really think about these things. Think about building your personal brand. And this is a very long discussion that I've shortened, so we can definitely talk about it further if you guys have any specific questions about personal branding. But I don't want to just wrap up. I'd love to take questions. Yeah.
So about personal branding, like value, vision, and voice, it's really simple in a theoretical way, but when you're building a personal brand, I think it's hard to narrow down to a brand, and then you don't want to be just stuck with that brand, and then you don't want to be also too broad. So how do you find that balance?
Right, good question. So the question was, how do you, when you're building your personal brand, how do you not get stuck with one brand, and how do you make it broad? So it's not, so it sounds really corny, but your personal brand is a journey. It's really going to change. I was doing fashion law for a few years, and that was my brand. I was building myself up as a fashion law attorney. And as of a few months ago, well, actually a little bit longer, I realized that I'd much rather practice just general trademark or general IP, but also I want to teach. I don't want to just practice. I don't want to just be a lawyer. So my brand is ever changing. And that's the great thing. You're not stuck with one thing. So if you discover what it is that you want to do and you feel super passionate about it and you start doing it and you realize maybe that's not exactly what you want to do, you can pivot. There's nothing stopping you from changing and evolving with your brand as well. And in terms of broad, do you mean like, for example, like a practice area? You don't want to pick just one because you don't want to limit yourself to that. So that's another thing. There's there's a saying that says the riches are in the niches. And a lot of people who are able to niche down their practice areas end up attracting more clients and developing more business. And it doesn't make sense because, well, it seems like it doesn't make sense because if you're just casting a wide net, it seems like you're just going to attract a lot of clients, right? And do all sorts of practice areas. But you end up not really just attracting a lot of clients. You attract the wrong kind of clients. So the ones that you don't want to work with, the ones who are not going to pay you. And you don't really establish yourself as a thought leader. If you're someone who does everything, then you really don't do much, do you? You're just kind of taking clients, and really when you niche down, your clients start to come to you, and you have to do a little bit less work to convince them to hire you, and you have to do less work going out there searching for them because they will find you if you're doing it correctly. So when I was establishing my fashion law brand, I would get people who found me because of that. And they're exactly the kind of clients I wanted to work with. And I didn't have to work so hard marketing myself. And I've never really spent money on marketing, to be honest, aside from buying a website and that kind of stuff. But the rest is just me creating content and them finding me. So very good question. Any others? Yes.
So how did you find, I mean, you said fashion law, how did you find your passion? Just doing one thing repeatedly, or was it something that you kind of, like one day was like, oh?
Right. No, so since I was a little girl, I used to sew all the time with my grandma. And I'm Lebanese. And I don't know if you know, but there are a lot of Lebanese designers. Fashion is huge in Lebanon. A lot of Lebanese designers here in the US. So I've kind of grown up with that in my culture. So when I I started off doing family law. And when I kind of was I don't want to say I was over it, but I didn't want to do it. I thought, what can I do that I know I can stand doing every single day? And I figured, you know what, let me see if there's any kind of law or any kind of legal issues in the fashion industry. And there were, and it was kind of that movement was beginning to pick up some steam. So I figured, you know what, if I'm gonna open my own practice, why not focus it on something that I can stand doing with people I can stand working with every single day, because I knew that was gonna be every day. So no, it wasn't something that I just woke up one day and thought of. But fashion was just kind of something in my culture, in my past that I considered a passion. But like I said, I think I'm still developing my passions. I can't say that I know exactly what it is. I know I want to teach as well. So I won't be practicing forever. I want to eventually be a professor. So that's another passion of mine that I feel like I want to explore someday. So it's something that can change, but your passion is I feel like it's in you. You know what I mean? It's something that you just know that you might want to explore. If it's something that you can apply to the legal profession, even better, because then you can marry the two. But there's nothing wrong with exploring your passions outside of the law as well. So you can practice and do something else. You can bring them together, or you can maybe not end up practicing. Maybe after a few years, you'll realize this isn't for me. And that's okay too, because I said, with this degree, you can do anything. I really do believe that. Did that answer the question? Okay, good. It was kind of long-winded. I wish some Google people would. I don't know if anyone's watching other than like my mom, but yeah.
What was one of the biggest obstacles you faced when you transitioned into going solo with your Gen I or
Okay, so actually when I went solo, it was with the fashion law, and then the podcast is the Gen Y Lawyer brand, which came a little bit later. But so the question is, what's the biggest obstacle when I transitioned into solo practice? It was the inconsistent income. And I think that was the most direct effect, I guess, the direct obstacle, because I wasn't getting the steady income I got when I was working for an employer. So that was the immediate, like the scariest part. The other part was just knowing that it was sort of me. It was all on me. Sure, I had a lot of mentors. I had my friends and family as support. But at the end of the day, it was just me and that client. And it was my guidance that these clients were relying on. And that's so scary as a young lawyer. I was about 2.5 years out of law school when I opened my practice. So just knowing that these people's lives are in my hands. And granted, it was a lot of trademark registration and it's not life or death, but it's their livelihood. So that's kind of a big deal. So just knowing that my guidance is what they were relying on was the scariest part. But that's kind of what we're taking on as lawyers, right? As law students, we know this is a heavy burden we're going to carry. So yeah, I'm just going to put this up there. Yes?
Did you build your brand first and then go solo, or were you solo and then?
Okay, so I actually started my blog when I was still working for my employer because I needed an outlet. I was doing family law, civil litigation, business, and I needed some kind of creative outlet. So I started my fashion law blog when I was still working for him. And that worked out perfectly because when I decided to go solo and he retired, it almost wasn't like ground zero. I had my blog to go off of, and I had people that I had met through my blog, other lawyers that I knew I could reach out to for questions. So that started when I was still working for my employer, and it kind of gave me a little bit of cushion and relief knowing that I had something when I started. But even if you start from scratch, even if you graduate when you guys pass and start working, if you decide to go solo, you can start from scratch. You have to start somewhere. So you don't need to have. I would urge you to start now if you're still law students. I know that's something Dan we were talking about it earlier, how a lot of law students should be thinking about this now and not just focus on what they're doing in law school. So yeah, the sooner you can start it, the better. But even if as soon as you start your practice, that's okay too. You'll begin to build it quickly. Yes.
At what point did you believe you had enough confidence to become a solo?
Okay, so when did I believe I had enough confidence to go solo? I don't know. I feel like I'm not super confident. Every day is a scary day, which is not good, right? But even if you're working for someone, you're never going to be fully confident, and you have that buffer. But I think I got to the point where I just couldn't take the way things were, and I knew I had to take action and change it. And I think that's an important thing to pay attention to. When you reach that point where you're just like, I can't do this anymore. I'm either not impacting the people I want to impact. I'm not making the kind of difference I want to make in my community, and I need to make a change. And that desire becomes more overwhelming than your fear of going solo. Yes.
Like you are completely your own brand. Is there like a certain line that you have, like when it comes to like your social media, going between personal and like business? Is it always business? I know there's like the common rules of like don't put anything crazy, but
right.
Do you like refrain from posting anything personal?
No, I would. Oh, sorry, that's right. So the question is, when I'm posting on social media, sorry, how do I balance the personal posts, for example, with business? Is it just business? Do I keep it super professional? I like to be somewhere in the middle, just because I'm more of a casual person, and you'll find that a lot of other lawyers aren't. They're all about the professional and putting up that facade, and that's okay. Maybe that's who they're trying to attract. I'm more casual. The people I want to work with, I want them to have a different relationship with me. So I post a lot of personal stuff, but it's nothing inappropriate. So I comment on like things that are happening, but with my own personal opinion. I might comment on a show if I'm watching it, but of course nothing too crazy. I post pictures of me just at events, at random things, and the captions aren't always like they're not always business related. And when I post business, it's usually like an article that I found, and I add my own comment to it. So I tend to err more. I go more towards casual than professional, and no one's ever, at least I don't think so, no one's ever questioned my professionalism. No one's ever said, oh, she's not a good attorney because she's posting something that's not just business related. Because I think, if anything, clients and other lawyers want to get to know you more. I think now a lot of clients look for attorneys they can connect with and they can bond with over something, and they want to get to know them and like them and trust them. And if it's always this professional facade, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to last too long, I guess, because people want to see through that. They want to meet you. They want to get to know you. Yeah.
So I started following your podcast when you probably had like 3 or 4 episodes.
Oh, really?
And you now have over 40.
Yeah.
And you said you started about 9 months ago. So it's crazy how quickly that's
yeah.
So, and I urge everyone here to listen to her podcast.
Thanks.
I mean, when I listened to just a couple of episodes, I'm like, oh wow, this really speaks to me.
Those weren't even the good episodes. Yeah.
Well, like, the topics are so interesting until like recent law, like if you're a law student or you're a recent law grad, it's really relevant. How has your personal brand changed or pivoted, or how have you changed based on all the people that you've talked to since you started the podcast? Okay,
so how has my personal brand changed since I started my podcast and started speaking with all the lawyers that I do on my podcast. So it has grown, it has matured, and I feel like I have gotten free advice from a lot of lawyers that others maybe pay to talk to or pay to attend their CLEs. And I've just been able to talk to them and kind of pick their brains, because I talk to them before and after the episode as well, so I get a lot more information. So my brand has developed from being someone who just wants to know more and doesn't know anything and just wants to talk to people to get more information, to someone who's seen as a little bit of an authority figure. I don't consider myself an authority figure, but now people turn to me to get answers that I've been asking those other lawyers on my show. So I think it's grown. I think, like I said, now I'm seen as a thought leader in what Gen Y lawyers are experiencing and going through. So that's how it's grown. It's evolved. And like I said, I'm still on that journey. I don't consider myself there yet. Like, I don't think I have all the answers, and I'm okay telling people I don't have the answers. But I think that's where we're all at, right? We're never all gonna know everything. And I think getting to that point where we can admit that it's okay, it's a learning process. And by the way, when you become lawyers and you're talking to your clients and they ask you something you don't know, that's another scary thing that I probably should have thrown in the other answer. But being able to say, you know what, I'm not sure, I will look that up, I'll get back to you. That's something that I've come to terms with, and that's part of my brand. The fact that it's a journey, and come on this journey with me. That's my thing, instead of saying this is what I know. So, very good question. Well, we can wrap it up and we can keep talking, but I put my information up there. Please reach out to me. I'm on Twitter, Periscope, I'm all about that life, Instagram, and then check it out. Check out the podcast. It's free. It's in iTunes. And again, I want to thank you guys so much. I know you have finals and you have a lot of stuff on your mind. So thank you for coming, and we can keep talking. And thank you, Dan. Thank you, MSU. You guys have a great campus. I'm going to go check it out later. But thank you. Thanks. I'm going to